Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on Facebook Live today. I'm Erica Anderson with National Review, and today I have on David French. Thanks for speaking with us today, David.
Thanks, Erica. Crazy day today. Lots to talk about.
I really don't even know where to begin. I mean, it's so hard after the very late night we all had. What time did you end up going to bed last night?
3:30 a.m. Central Time.
And what time did you get up?
Well, I'm a later riser, so I got up about 7 a.m. Central.
Well, that's not bad.
Yeah, I had a good 3.5 hours of sleep. I'm feeling great.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person that goes to bed about 9 p.m. and I thought, I'm going to have a hard time staying up, but I had no problem staying up. I actually could not go to sleep until these results came rolling in, and I'm on Eastern time, so that made it even worse.
Yeah, I couldn't stop watching Twitter. It was like crack cocaine.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you had one of our first, I think, response pieces out on the site last night. I believe the headline was "God Bless President-elect Trump" or something like that.
Yes.
And when did you start writing this? At one point in the night, did you say, "Okay, it's time"?
Well, I'll tell you when I did. When I was refreshing the Pennsylvania Secretary of State website, which was continually 5 percentage points ahead of like CNN and Fox and all of the networks on the Pennsylvania vote totals. I didn't know why the networks weren't actually broadcasting what the Pennsylvania Secretary of State was doing. And then when I saw Trump take about a 30,000 vote lead with 98.5% of precincts reporting and 100% of Philadelphia in, I knew at that point it was over, and I knew exactly what I wanted to say. And I just started writing, and I actually had it logged into the National Review system, images loaded, everything, to hit publish the instant one of the networks called it for Trump.
What time did they end up calling it?
As soon as they called it, I published.
Do you know what time they ended up calling it?
If you look at my post, it's probably time-stamped about 2 minutes after that.
Yeah. And so you said in the piece that it was about until 9:30 last night that you had thought that he's not going to win this thing. At what point did you say, "Oh, it's going to happen"?
I had two flashes where I thought it might. Around 9:30, I'm thinking, wait a minute, he could actually win Virginia, and if he won Virginia, it was game over. And then I realized Virginia was going to slip away from him. But at the exact same time Virginia started to slip away, the upper Midwest started to report in, and you saw numbers out of Wisconsin, out of Ohio, out of Michigan, and then most importantly out of Pennsylvania that were stunning. And I know enough about Pennsylvania. I used to live in Pennsylvania. I'm very familiar with the dynamic there, that I knew Hillary Clinton had to run up the score in Philadelphia by a huge amount, and she wasn't doing it. And as soon as I saw that was happening, I thought, the holy grail of Republicans over the last multiple election cycles has been Pennsylvania. And it's always like Lucy with the football and Charlie Brown. Just when they think it's in reach, it's yanked back out of reach. And I saw, wait a minute. And then I flipped over the New York Times, which frankly, give them credit. They were ahead of the curve on predicting this changing.
Everyone was sharing that little meter that said, prediction, Trump's going to win.
Yeah. So I dove into their Pennsylvania numbers, and I thought, I'm not insane. Even the New York Times is seeing what I'm seeing here, and in my analysis. And then I thought, wow, I mean, this could be real. And then it was just a matter of looking at what was going to happen in a place like Wisconsin or Iowa, where these numbers real. And in Wisconsin was the big shock, I think, to a lot of people, because I'm not sure that there was a single poll of Wisconsin that had him winning it. But I'll tell you what people discounted in Wisconsin. The Wisconsin GOP is like the SEAL Team 6 of the Republican Party. I mean, these guys elect Scott Walker, win a recall, re-elect Scott Walker, re-elect Johnson. I mean, and then put Trump over for the first GOP Wisconsin win in a generation.
Do we have any Wisconsinites watching right now? Give us a shout if you're watching.
Hey, oh yeah, we need to. You need to conduct seminars for GOP voters and activists in every other state in the union, because nobody can match the Wisconsin GOP.
I totally agree. For those that are just jumping on, just thanks for coming on. Let us know where you're watching today. Let us know what you thought about the election results last night. I'm Erica Anderson. I'm talking to David French about the election, the crazy election night that we all had last night. So let me go back to another question about this kind of like running up to last night. So many people were wrong about him. I mean, think back to a year. We would never have imagined this day, but all the experts, all the pundits, everyone said, yeah, he's fine. He's not going to be the nominee. And definitely no one thought he was going to win this thing. Why do you think everyone was so wrong about him?
Well, I mean, look, I got to confess. I mean, you're talking to one of the wrongest people in America about his prospects. Several weeks ago when it was, or a couple of months ago when it was clear he was going to get the nomination, I did the really humbling thing and went back and I looked at some of the early stuff that I wrote about him. Mm-hmm. In the early stuff, going all the way back to summer of 2015, I was basically dismissive. I was sort of, writing about some of the issues surrounding him, but I was treating him like he was another Herman Cain, which was so very wrong. I didn't really begin to realize that he was going to be a major threat until the later fall, October, November. And then once he won the nomination, I believed that the Democratic firewall was an impossible hurdle for him. I thought that their get out the vote operation was going to be sufficient to put Hillary Clinton over the top, even if she was a terrible campaigner, as she is, and even if she was corrupt, as she is. I thought the fact that Trump had so much negative character baggage was going to neutralize whatever character advantage a Republican candidate was going to have. So all of those things come into play. And look, I mean, everyone was missing this. I mean, I was talking to some folks from Politico earlier this morning. They were stunned. There's internal reporting from the Trump campaign that they thought they were going to tap out at 240 electoral votes, which, newsflash, is a loss. Now, there were some hardcore Trump true believers online that were convinced he was going to win, and hats off to them. They were right. Everybody else was wrong. And I'll tell you what they were missing. I'll tell you what I was missing. We were not missing the limits of Trump's support. Trump underpolls Mitt right now in the popular vote. He underpolls McCain in the popular vote. He underpolls George W. Bush in the popular vote. He underpolls Obama's 2012 totals in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin. He's lower than those vote totals in all of those states. And yet he's won. He's won. Why is that? He's won because, guess what? Hillary's vote total is going to end up somewhere around 9 or 10 million fewer votes than Obama got in 2008. Somewhere around 6 million fewer votes than Obama got in 2012. The Democratic support for the Democratic nominee cratered.
Yep. And you wrote about today as well that, and we all know that now the Republicans have the Senate and the House and the presidency, and the Republican Party now runs the United States of America, as you wrote. How do you feel about the scales of power being tipped so far to one side?
Wow, I'll be honest with you. I grew up. The first election I voted for was in 1988 when Bush won a landslide. The first election I really followed closely was 84 when I was 15 years old and Reagan won in a landslide. Even in the middle of those landslides, I could not imagine a United States of America where at every level was so dominated by Republican office holders. I just couldn't imagine it. I mean, Reagan always had divided government. George H.W. Bush always had divided government. Even in that brief time when George W. Bush had the House and the Senate, the states were far more in Democratic hands than they are now. I never thought I would see this. So, here's the way I look at it. I was never Trump, and I was never Hillary. So the never Hillary side of myself is absolutely happy to see justice done in her case, to see her ushered off and out of the American political scene. The Clintons have been hanging around, engaging in their petty corruption for 25 years now. It's time for them to go on. So I'm happy about that. I'm unambiguously thrilled at all the high character, high quality conservative Republicans in the House and Senate and in state legislatures and state governorships around the country. I'm unambiguously thrilled about that. the never Trump side of me it's still sinking in that he's the president of the United States. And as I said in my piece, I'm praying fervently that I'm just as wrong about his character and fitness for office as I was wrong about his political chances. I pray for his wisdom, that he'll have wisdom, that he'll recognize the enormity of the challenge before him, and he'll listen to wise counsel. So I'm praying for the man, for sure.
Were you always never Trump from the start?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't. Throughout the early part of the primary, my view was Trump's my least favorite of the primary contenders, or of the top contenders. I didn't really try to compare him to Jim Gilmore or Pataki.
Yeah.
He was my least favorite of the top contenders, but I'd happily vote for him over Hillary Clinton. But as I learned more about him, and especially in February, March, as the race got really intense, and a lot more of the research about him came out, and he engaged in conspiracy theorizing around the Iraq War, and the more vicious he got in his attacks on people, more we learned about him, that's when I switched. And I wrote a piece about it, describing why I changed my mind. And this was in March. And there was no information that I got between March and this election that led me to believe that my never Trump position was wrong. And the fact that he won doesn't mean that he has a higher character than he had yesterday. It just means I really, really hope I was wrong about his character.
And you also wrote about how you were kind of viciously attacked online,
right,
like as part of being a never Trump person. What was the response when you wrote that article describing what you and your family went through? From the alt-right is what it mostly was, but
right. Well, the response was overwhelming. I mean, first, on National Review, well over 1 million people read the article. The response was overwhelming across the political spectrum, and in many ways deeply encouraging, because I had some of my most stalwart critics on the pro-Trump side, who were conservatives, who were pro-Trump, were nothing but kind to me and to my wife about what we've been through. And then people on the left, who had long criticized my writing and called me, all kinds of names for my conservative views, were also reached out and were kind to me. So that was deeply reassuring. Of course, there was another wave of alt-right backlash, and look, here's my view on it. I'm deeply concerned about the growing influence of the alt-right. I have personal reasons to be deeply, deeply concerned about the growing influence of the alt-right. And one of my priorities, with whatever platform and voice that I have, is that I want to be vigilant in making sure and calling out the influence of the alt-right on a Trump administration, on Congress, in mainstream conservative thinking. It's an abhorrent ideology, and we have to be incredibly vigilant, and we have to be incredibly vigilant with this new Trump administration. But what I am gratified about is, I think if you dive down and you look at the numbers, the alt-right has been very, very vocal online. It is more influential online than it is in the real world.
Right.
And I don't believe the alt-right elected Donald Trump. I don't think the numbers support that in any way, shape, or form. And that is encouraging.
And that kind of leads to another thing that you wrote today, which is kind of talking about a viral clip that went viral last night. It was Van Jones on CNN, and we're gonna attempt to play this clip for you guys, and then kind of break down what David had to say. So give me 1 second as I try to bring it up on the screen for you. Okay, let's see here. Move that out of the way. This is our first time using some new software, so bear with us. Okay, so I'm going to play it, and then we will come back.
A rebellion against the elites. True, it was a complete reinvention of politics and polls, it's true. But it was also something else. We've talked about race. We've talked about everything but race tonight. We've talked about income. We've talked about class. We've talked about region. We haven't talked about race. This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part. And that's the part where the pain comes. And Donald Trump has a responsibility tonight to come out and reassure people that he is going to be the president of all the people who he insulted and offended and brushed aside. Yeah,
Okay, so that was the clip, and now I'm going to take us back to our screen. Apologies for the hold up on that. I'm going to bring David back up on screen, but essentially what, the main line that he had there was that it was a white lash against a black president. And David, as I'm pulling you back on screen, we can hear you. So if you want to give a little insight to the article that you wrote describing why this election of Donald Trump is not about racism.
Right, and look, if the clip worked well, you could see that Van Jones was deeply emotional there. And there's a lot of Black Americans who feel exactly the same way that he feels. There's a lot of Latino Americans who feel exactly the way that he feels. They're deeply emotional today, feeling like there is a white wave cresting against them. It is so important. It is so important for the future effort of racial reconciliation and racial peace and harmony in this country that we look at this through a factual lens and not an emotional lens. And here's what the facts say. The facts say there was no white lash. There was no surge in white votes to defeat Hillary Clinton. What the numbers say. Mitt Romney got 59% of the white vote. Donald Trump got 58% of the white vote. So how is it possible that Donald Trump could win if he got 1 percentage point less of the white vote than Mitt Romney did, and the white vote is the largest portion of the vote? I'll tell you how. 3 ways. 1, Donald Trump got a larger share of the black vote than Mitt Romney did. I mean, here's the numbers. Obama won 93% of the black vote in 2012. Hillary won 88%. That's a 5% difference. Number 2, this is a shocker for so many people. It's a shocker to me. Donald Trump outperformed Mitt Romney on the Latino vote. So Obama won 71% of the Latino vote. Hillary won 65%. That's 6-point difference. And then here's number 3. Millions of Black and Latino voters stayed home. As I said earlier, Hillary's going to end up with around 10 million fewer votes than Barack Obama in 2008. She's going to end up with around 6 million fewer votes than Barack Obama in 2012, between 5 and 6 million fewer than Barack Obama in 2012. A disproportionate number of that 6 million who stayed home were African American voters. So if you want to know why Hillary Clinton lost and Donald Trump won, it's really simple. African American and Latino voters let Donald Trump win. They let him win. The coalition of the ascendant, that's what people called it, and after 2008 and 2012, where the Democrats were winning minority coalitions by overwhelming numbers, and that was giving them an electoral edge, they called that the coalition of the ascendant, or the Obama coalition. Well, the coalition of the ascendant stayed home. So here's a couple of things to think about that. Number 1, no numbers support the notion of a white lash. They just don't. And number 2, the numbers that do exist show that Democratic, African American, and Latino voters felt, at the very least, either so indifferent to Hillary Clinton or so unthreatened by Donald Trump that they just didn't participate. They didn't bother to participate, or slightly more of them voted for Trump by percentage than voted for Romney by percentage. So those numbers don't tell us that this was the great white wave. They just don't. And they don't tell us that this was the great emergence of white identity politics. They just don't. It tells us that the Democrats alienated their own base. And that is a huge problem for them. Huge. Not to say that the GOP has it all rosy. We didn't exactly increase their, when you're looking at a vote total where 04 George W. Bush from 12 years ago is still the highest number of voters a Republicans ever gained. Republicans need to realize we need to be able to get more than 59, 60, 61 million people to the polls. But the Democrats thought they had this thing locked up, and they have to realize that they can't guarantee their own level of support.
Yeah, and I also thought was interesting about in the Van Jones clip is he said, Trump's got people to apologize to. He's got to reassure people that he's not going to forget about them, the people he's insulted. But what he doesn't, mention, of course, is that had Hillary Clinton been elected, there would be plenty of people that she too would need to reassure that she wasn't going to alienate. If you think back to even when Obama was running in 2008 and he talks about the people clinging to their guns and religion, and then of course Hillary's comments about the deplorables, I mean, she too would have had a large group of people, and it's those people that she would have had to apologize to that actually elected Donald Trump this time around. So
yeah, well, think about this. Think about the white evangelical vote. So, I was very critical of evangelical leaders for endorsing a man who was thrice married, appeared in Playboy videos, bragged about committing sexual battery. I don't think that evangelical leaders should have endorsed him. I just don't. I still don't. But there was a piece that went around, but at the end of the day, white evangelicals voted for Trump by a greater margin than they voted for George W. Bush. I mean, think about that. By a greater margin than they voted for
that's crazy.
Mitt Romney. Well, why is that? And there was a piece that went around that I think really encapsulated the thinking of white evangelicals. And it was vote for Trump as an act of self-defense. And the view was essentially that the Obama administration had become so aggressive in the culture war that its continued policies represented an existential threat to religious liberty in the United States. Obama didn't have to try to force nuns to pay for abortifacients. He chose to. Mm-hmm. Obama didn't have to, in the Hosanna Tabor case, try to argue that federal and state authorities could get involved in the pastor selection process at a church. But he made that argument. Fortunately, he lost in the Supreme Court. He didn't have to, and Hillary didn't have to be so relentlessly and aggressively pro-abortion. But he was, and she was. They made these choices, and they have to look themselves in the mirror now and ask, are we so bigoted against Christians that they're looking at their choices and believing in their heart of hearts that it's better to support a thrice married, philandering adulterer who was in Playboy videos and brags about sexual battery, it's preferable to support him than to either stay home or pull the lever for a Democrat. That's a remarkable feat of alienation that the Democrats achieved.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. That's a really good point. Well, I won't keep you too much longer, but one last question. What role do you see Mike Pence playing in the next 4 years? Do you think Trump's going to give him any kind of, I don't know if leverage is the right word, but like a place in the administration to where he's really influencing policy decisions, which I know with Mike Pence, he is the kind of the saving grace for so many conservatives that chose to vote for Trump.
That's a great question. I mean, look, Trump runs his companies. If you're looking for this notion that he will just be sort of a caretaker, president, and delegator, I don't know that there's a lot of track record for that notion. I mean, he's the dominant force, obviously, in his companies. Now, his children have a big role to play, of course. But he's never run anything as big as the United States of America. Every president has to delegate. And so the next big hurdle for him is who is he going to appoint to these key cabinet agencies? And is he going to reward loyalty over all else, or is he going to go outside of that inner core group of advisors and stalwart supporters? That's going to be a very interesting question. And I mean, some of that core group of stalwart supporters will be effective, others not so much. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I know he's been consulting with the Heritage Foundation, which is good to know. I used to work there, so
that's encouraging.
Yes.
And there was a ton of good folks at the Heritage Foundation. If he's listening to what the Heritage Foundation has to say, a lot of these federal agencies and bureaucratic posts are going to be filled by some extremely capable people. Definitely.
Well, thank you so much, David, for talking with me today about a little election analysis. We've got a long year ahead. We've got a lot of work to do. And National Review readers and viewers, you can feel free to visit our page at nationalreview.com. We have all kinds of analysis out for you from all over the place. We had Never Trumpers here, but we also had people that voted for Trump. And, we're all optimistic, and we're all hoping to look forward to working with President-elect Trump moving forward. And we do have an editorial about that out today. So if you enjoyed this conversation, I hope that you'll share it with your page and that you'll join us again next time we're on. So thanks. Thanks, David.